and she did opening night, and it went so well that we decided to keep her on for the remaining performances. I had never done anything like this before, so I thought it was super cool. And basically what it is DJ Ashu is spinning music live over Zoom. You can turn your camera on or you can turn it off if you don't want to be on camera while you're dancing in your living room. But a lot of people left their cameras on or just like dancing away in their living rooms. And it was really fun just to have everyone there together enjoying music and dancing, which we haven't been able to do for close to a year now.
No, exactly as you said, it's a very inviting and inclusive way to include your audience and yourself. And something kind of interesting about this as well, there's been cooking shows for a long time on television, but something about this that sounds unique and different, and if you'd like to talk about it more, please, is, you know, you're bringing your family experience and culture experience and sharing that with the audience rather than here's how to make chicken or, you know, something a little more generic. So how do you make this a more unique experience and separate from other cooking shows that have existed before?
Well, it's actually a play. So the show is a play that deceives you to think that it's a cooking show. So Arpita was really ingenious in the way that she directed it and presented the show, in that it feels like a cooking show, like it feels like you turned on Food Network in a very, I think, comforting way and a very entertaining way. But it's actually a scripted play where I'm sharing a very personal story about my family's immigrant experience. So it's a memoir. And I think that we're coining the phrase culinary theater, which is our description of what this is. We might be the first version of culinary theater out there, so we're trademarking it.
Nice. I like it. Trademark away. Yes. Now, Arpita, directing this kind of immersive experience, theater and cooking experience, what was that process like? And is there much room for improv?
I mean, the show is essentially improv every night because Sri has a different audience every night. So in the few shows we've even done, the vibe is always slightly different, I think, you know, and so the audience, the 11, the certain level, the chef's table audience that interact with Sri as part of the show are in the show. And the only kind of right way to do that is for Sri to just live that show every show and take that as is and not have sort of preconceived notions. So it has that magic of live theater, right? Which is we set everything except the audience. And that's why we set everything, because we can't set the audience. And so everything else is like very careful and very, you know, meticulously unfolds in terms of when we are looking at the food, when we're looking at Sri, all the movement, all the design. But then there's this, every show going to be the surprise element of who's going to be cooking with Sri, what questions will they ask, what of their experience will they bring? And that has always, it's shifted every time. And that's been really exciting to see. And I think it sort of shifts. Every show is a little different in how Sri performs it, because he's able to sort of like take that journey anew every time. And I think that's what makes it feel intimate and not sort of like this rehearsed old thing. And that's the liveness of it. I think the exciting thing is it's so theatrical in the sense that it's completely alive. You know, every show is it's never going to be the same as the show before that. So that was really exciting, but scary, because it's this unknown element, like how is the audience going to respond and all of that. But to sort of protect that spontaneity, we were really prepared, and we did a very set a really great system for how the show could run, I think.
Yeah.
So that was really important. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned audience participation. Tell me about the different experiences that people can get tickets for. There's different levels and different interactiveness going on.
Mm-hmm. So the premium level ticket is what we call Chef's Table, and that is a very limited number of seats for every show. And those folks will be able to interact with me and be on screen with me. So they'll be able to ask me questions while they're cooking along. I will be asking them questions, and they are seen by everyone in the audience. So it's a really fun, interactive version of the show that you can participate in. The next level of ticket is also really fun, and it's called the foodie level, the Bollywood foodie ticket. And for those folks, what you get is you won't be on screen. So for people who are more camera shy, this is perfect for them. But what you will receive is this beautiful box mailed directly to you, which includes all of the spices and non-perishable ingredients that you need to cook along with me. You don't have to cook along with me. You can always cook ahead of the show or cook after the show, or you can order in from an Indian restaurant, do whatever you want. But the box is a really wonderful keepsake and a potential gift item. The spices will last you for a really long time. So that's the next level of ticket. And then the third level of ticket is for folks who don't need the box because maybe they already have the spices or they're not planning on cooking. So those folks will get a link to stream and watch the show. They'll also get digital recipes of the dishes that we're making if they want to make it on their own using their own ingredients. So everyone can participate at whatever level they're most comfortable with.
Love it. Now, what would you say to the novice cookers out there, or maybe people who are a little apprehensive of like, oh, I don't know how to cook? What would you tell them to encourage them to come in and join?
Well, I would say that this is designed specifically for you. And one of the things that I say in the top of the show is that I am not a chef. I have no culinary training. I learned how to cook Indian food because I wanted to preserve my mom's recipes. I wanted to be able to enjoy this food in the future. And I think that's a very similar experience for a lot of us first generation Americans whose parents are immigrants and brought with them food traditions that are hard for us to hold on to. We really need to learn this stuff. And that's the story of the show, of how I learned to cook this food. So for those of you out there who are intimidated by cooking or who can't even boil a pot of water, I'm with you. I feel you. I am one of you. And if I can do it, you can do it. But it's very much tailored for those level of cooks.
Now, Arpita, semi-technical question. Now, if people, you've watched it live, are people who've purchased tickets able to go back and rewatch if maybe they missed a step or something? Is it just the one-off experience?
So if you do the chef's table, because there's so much pressure on the chef's table folks to sort of cook along and, and be in the show, you do get a link afterwards. So you can watch yourself and, relive that memory. For other folks, it's just that live stream, but you do get all the recipe cards, all the instructions. So those are for you to have in case you started cooking and then you were like, no, I don't want to do this. I actually just want to focus on the show. You can just do that and then refer back to the recipe card. Yeah.
Oh, good. Because I know some people maybe want to take their time, but that's great that you have the follow along as well. Now, we've talked a little bit about experiences from the audience. Arpita, has there been a favorite experience of yours with the audience interaction or a moment that has stood out to you?
Oh, there's been so many. I think there was so many beautiful moments where people really resonate with the story. But for me, one of the kind of great moments was on opening night, we had one of our guests was Nina Davaluri, who's the first and only South Asian Miss America, who was Miss America in 2014. And I just loved that not only did she take Sri's recipe, but she didn't use the chicken and she did something different, which is like kind of really part of, I think, what the story of the show is, but also her own personal resonance as a first generation Indian American growing up, that connection. To me, I could see the kind of surprise in her in where she thought she was like, oh, I'm going to come and I'm going to cook this thing. And with this other South Asian American, and then it's like she formed this connection because the story was so resonant. So, and we keep seeing that over and over again with so many guests, and it's not even just South Asian, children of immigrants or just people who miss their, moms a comforting food or something. That it's really moving to see the audience every night. It's really beautiful.
That's a very beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. And then Sri, what about you? Any moments from the audience interaction, because you're literally interacting with them? Any of those moments that stood out to you so far?
Yeah, well, one that comes to mind is a guy who joined us during previews. His name was Chris. I don't know him. I don't know most I don't know 99% of the people that are joining. And I think he was from LA, and he started off by telling me that he had never cooked Indian food before. They had never really even cooked before. And so he was really intimidated. But we just sort of ended up developing a rapport through the course of the evening, because I, kept checking in with him and we were talking. And then by the end of it, he was really incredibly moved by the story. And also he had accomplished the meal. He had cooked it and he was so proud of himself, and it was so tasty. And it was really nice for me to see him have that moment. And also for us to connect on the story, because he's not Indian American. I don't think that he's the child of immigrants, so it wasn't a story that is about his experience, but there was enough universality about it that it really connected with him on an emotional level. And that was really nice for me to experience.
Well, as you said, it's a way to connect with people digitally, as we are even now, and also culturally, because you're sharing your experience and then other people coming in on that. So probably that is probably an optimal goal, or what you would like people to take away from the show. But is there anything else you would like people to take away from the show and the experience, Sri?
Well, specifically, I would love to share with them my passion for Indian food and for Bollywood musicals. And I think that people are familiar or vaguely familiar with both of those things, but I want them to understand more authentically what both of those things are and the importance that they have in my life, and I think more broadly in a lot of Indian American people's lives. And so that on the food side, Indian food is not chicken tikka masala and tandoori chicken and naan. It's not the stuff that it is. Those things are Indian, but they're restaurant food. And that's not the food that we eat at home. That's not the food that nourishes me and Arpita and the stuff that we share with our families. And so I'm really passionate about sharing with folks what Indian American food at home is like, and that it's super flavorful and healthy and easy to make. And it means a lot to us. And then with the Bollywood movies, it's for so many of us first generation Indian Americans, these films are the way that we connected to our heritage. I grew up in Pennsylvania in an entirely white community, and watching these movies is how I learned the language. It's how I learned Hindi. It's how I learned about the music and fell in love with the music. And I think that for so many of us Indian Americans, regardless of where our parents came from in India, because India is such a diverse place, regardless if they came from North India or South India, if they're Hindu or Muslim or Christian or whatever our backgrounds were in India, in America, we almost all share a connection with Bollywood films. And that's something that I want other Americans to know about.
And Arpita, what about you? What do you hope people take away from this show?
If I hope that people come and they are transported, that they are surprised, because I think the play is so beautiful in its unexpectedness in a way, And when I watch it, I feel that thing of a great theatrical experience. Of you think it's something like you come in and he's cooking, he's making cocktails, and then you go somewhere else. And I hope that people are able to be sort of present for that, and really kind of go on that journey with Sri, because it's really quite tremendous. So yeah.
And it's great now with technology, because there can be shows like this. You can connect to people, and you have better access to Bollywood movies. You don't have to get that VHS copy or that DVD that's burned like 5 times over. And so there's so many.
They're on Netflix, they're on Amazon. You can watch them easily. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Do you tell people where they can find it? Because otherwise you're like, here's my list and where you can go.
No. So all of the films that are in my book were specifically selected because they are available to stream online on Netflix, Amazon, or YouTube. Because there are a lot of other great Bollywood films that unfortunately aren't available. But I wanted to make sure that we were highlighting films that you can watch easily.
All right. Fun question. What are some of your top 3 Bollywood gateway drugs, essentially, to get someone into Bollywood that's never watched it before?
Okay. So for someone who's never watched it before, okay. So one film that I would say there's one genre of Indian films that are spectacles, that are all about the musical numbers, the lavish musical numbers, dance numbers, sets, costumes. So to get into that, I would say watching a movie called Bajirao Mastani. And it's available on Amazon. It's also very accessible because Priyanka Chopra is in it. And it's beautiful and gorgeous. And if you fall in love with that, then there are many other films like that that you can watch thereafter. The second film that I would recommend is one that's very recent. I think it's from like last year or 2 years ago. It's called Andhadhun. Andhadhun. And the reason that I recommend that film is because it's a great mystery. It's a great suspenseful mystery. It's available on Netflix, I believe. And it shows you the other side of Bollywood in that they're not just all lavish musicals, but they could be thrillers or suspense stories. So Andhadhun is a perfect example of that. And then the third way in, I would say, is to recommend a great sort of art house film. And Arpita, what would be a good one to recommend for that?
What about Lunchbox?
The Lunchbox.
Not really Bollywood.
Yeah, The Lunchbox is a great one. Yeah. And that, I think a lot of people may have heard of it. It was released theatrically in the United States a few years ago. But it's also a great example of sort of art house Indian cinema. There are no songs in that movie. And it shows another genre, another type of Indian cinema.
Then you also have in your book Sri NH10, which is also an example of that. Yeah,
NH10, which is a great horror flick. If anyone, or like not horror, but like crime suspense.
Right.
Yeah, it's really scary and good.
Ooh, nice. Well, thank you very much for the recommendations. If people want more recommendations and they haven't seen your show yet, they should definitely go check it out. You can get your tickets at geffenplayhouse.org. And again, I like the exciting news. It goes through March 6th. So congratulations on the extension.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And is there anything else real quick you'd like to add before we're wrapping up right here?
Good. Check out the show. I'll see you in my apartment.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you everyone who is watching. Go check out Bollywood Kitchen. Get your tickets at geffenplayhouse.org. My name is Carrie Lane. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.